that you have the fear and self-critique due tonight at midnight. These two things are found in the speeches tab in the intro speech folder, okay? I want to show you how to find it because people have been very confused about where it is. So inside your Blackboard, you're going to go to the speeches tab, and then you're going to click on the introduction speech. And that's where you're going to find your fear and self-critique. Wow, our internet is slow today. So, in order to do the self-critique, you're going to download the document, and then when you finish it, you're going to click on the assignment itself, and it will allow you to upload the document here. You can just click on Browse Computer and upload the document. In order to do the peer critique, you're going to download the document, then you'll click on the peer critique, and you'll notice that it's in the discussion board. It is not an assignment. So what you're going to do is create a thread, and you're going to copy and paste what you did on the Word document into the discussion board. In order to copy and paste on Blackboard, you have to use Control-C, Control-V. Okay, you can't right-click. But it usually pops up a little box that tells you that. Okay, so that's how you're going to turn in the peer and self-critique, which is due tonight. Okay. All right, let's talk about Chapter 4, which is types of speeches. We're not talking about mediums of speeches in this. We're talking about types of speeches. Because we've already talked about extemporaneous, impromptu, and all that, right? That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is types of speeches, so informative, persuasive, and so on. But we're going to start with strategies for speaking, and we're going to start with Aristotle. So we talked about Aristotle a little bit in Chapter 1 when we talked about his proofs. And so we're going to visit those again. Aristotle said in order to persuade anybody of anything, you must have proof. Okay, you must have proof. And he said there's really two types of proof. There's inartistic and there's artistic. And inartistic proof is something that you can experience through your senses. You can see it, taste it, touch it, smell it, hear it. So the example I always give, if you're in a courtroom and someone's being tried for murder, and that prosecutor holds up a bag and says, this is Exhibit A, and inside that bag is the gun, and they say, this is the gun used to kill so-and-so because ballistics match, and also it has that person's fingerprints on it. We didn't make that up, right? It is. There was a gun or there wasn't a gun. But Aristotle said you also have to have artistic proof. And artistic proof is separated into three categories. There's ethos, which is the speaker's credibility or their character. Okay, so when I came in here on the first day of class, what led you to believe that I was credible to teach the class?
You said you had a degree.
Oh, I said I had a degree. I'm like, oh, I definitely know how to do this because I have a degree. What else?
You had experience.
I had experience. I've done it for several years. What else?
Your confidence.
Okay, I got up here and said, hey, I'm your professor, and nobody else in the room did, right? And I said, here's what we're going to do this semester. What else?
Your name was on our schedule.
Okay, it matched, right? I was not an imposter. What was I wearing?
Professional clothing.
Okay, I was wearing a blazer, pants, right, professional clothing. You'll never see the blazer again. I just wear it on day one because it says, hey, I'm professional, right? And then the rest of the time I just dress kind of casual. But all of that is building my credibility, okay? So credibility can be broken into three parts. There's initial credibility. So initial credibility is all the credibility that you build in your audience before you ever speak. Okay, so it's what you look like, it's how you appear, your confidence, your posture, it's what your credentials are, right? How many degrees you have or what the experience that you've already had. All of that builds up and we say, okay, I think this person is credible or this person isn't credible, right? Based on what I know about them, okay? Then you begin to speak. When you begin to speak, we begin to see the derived credibility. So derived credibility is how credible you are during your speech. So are you confident? Do you seem to know what you're talking about? Do you stutter or stammer or trip over your words? Are you excited? Do you seem sold out for that topic? All of that is part of your derived credibility. When you finish speaking, then the audience is left with the terminal credibility. So terminal is initial plus derived equals terminal. So if you started speaking and you seemed really credible and really knowledgeable and like a really good person, but then you got up here and you started talking and you used racial slurs and you were rude to this population and you spoke bad about that population, then we have the derived or the terminal credibility, and so it's probably not as good as it started out, right? That's how we get credibility or your ethics or your character. That's what logos is. And if I don't believe you, if I don't believe that you're a good person, if I don't believe that you're credible to talk about something, I'm not going to believe anything you have to say. Okay? The second proof is logos. Logos means logic. Can you create a logical argument? Now, here's the thing about logos. What is logical to me does not necessarily have to be logical to you, because we have a different worldview, right? So something that I think is very logical, makes a lot of sense, it seems to be like understood, that does not necessarily mean it's logical to you, right? You may be like, well, no, because this, right? So if you think about the things that we fight about in society, the issues that we don't agree on, and you're like, I don't understand how anybody thinks that's okay or thinks that makes sense. It's because of worldview, because we don't always have the same logical thing. And a lot of arguments are not even really based in fact. But if it sounds logical, then it is, right? Come on in. And then we have pathos. Pathos means emotion. So if I want to persuade you to do something, buy something, be something, stop something, I have to emotionally connect to you. I have to get you emotionally involved in the topic. And I'm going to do that through some different ways. Number one, I also have to be emotionally involved in the topic. If I got up here and I was like, hey, we're going to talk about chapter 4 and chapter 5 today. Chapter 4 is about types of speeches. Here's some different types of speeches. This one, this one, this one. I'm bored, right? If I'm boring, do you care about the topic? No, it makes it so much harder, so I have to have emotion myself. But then I also have to do some good audience analysis, and I have to know who is my audience and what do they care about. And then I'm going to talk about what they care about. Here's a really good example of that. So I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter, and we had a Kirby vacuum cleaner salesman come to our house. And I knew I'm not emotionally really that stable at this point, right? Like I'm hormonal and like I'm easily able to be made to cry. So I'm just going to like sequester myself in the bedroom and I'm not going to talk to him. But he was there for so long, y'all. And I got really hungry. And so I came out of the bedroom and he's like, oh, hey, is this the lady of the house, right? And he starts in on me. He sees like I'm emotionally vulnerable. So he's like, here's how I get her. So he's like, this is what they do with the Kirby. They throw baking soda over your floor, and then they vacuum it up with your vacuum. And then they say, well, it looks pretty good, right? And you're like, yeah. And they're like, well, let's vacuum it with our vacuum. So they get a Kirby, and it's got this special, like, black pouch on it, right? And then they vacuum over the area they just vacuumed. And then they open up that black pouch, and there's all the baking soda that was left behind by your vacuum. And he's like, oh, your vacuum didn't really do a very good job. Is that the vacuum you're going to use when your baby's born? Is that how clean you want your floor to be when your daughter learns to crawl? And I'm like, no. We got about the vacuum full. Like, he's like, it's $1,500. I'm like, doesn't matter. Does our baby have a price? Like, can you put a price on our baby, right? He knew. He got me. He emotionally connected with me. He knew something that was important to me. And he's like, I'll make this work, right? Well, that's what you do to any audience that you want to persuade. You figure out what emotionally connects to them, and I'm going to talk about that, okay? And so using ethos, pathos, and logos creates that persuasion that you have to have in order to persuade people. Now, I believe all messages are persuasive, even if they're not supposed to be persuasive, right? So in order to be a great speaker, you must be able to utilize ethos, pathos, logos. And it doesn't matter if it's an informative speech or persuasive speech or whatever. So, I want to show you this clip. This is a debate between President Trump and Hillary Clinton from last time they were running for president, okay? And It's done by a debate professor, and so she kind of goes through ethos, pathos, logos, but in the debate, in this section of it, she pops up every time they use an ethos claim, a pathos claim, or a logos claim. Like every time they use that appeal to the audience, she pops it up. And I think it's a really great way to kind of show you how we use it all the time in everyday life, okay? So I'm going to skip the beginning of her because she's so dramatic and she kind of annoys me.
Not necessarily making sense, but just framing your argument in a way that sounds logical when you present facts that sound like they could be true or seem reasonable at the time, or when you provide figures and supporting evidence to back up your claim. Now, I want to really emphasize here that one person's logic is not necessarily another person's logic. What is logical to people depends really, really largely on their worldview. So when you're listening to logos arguments, try not to think about whether or not you agree with the person. Just try to think, okay, are they attempting to back up this argument by using things that sound like factual information? That is what you're looking at with logos. Next up, we've got ethos, and ethos is so important in politics. We elect our politicians primarily dependent on their ethos. The most straightforward translation of ethos is that it's the appeal to character. It's giving the audience the sense that the person who's talking to them has the character they desire. But if you look at ethos, it's not just about character. It's also about your reputation, about your accomplishments, about who you are as a person, as an individual, what your personality is like. How trustworthy are you? Really, ethos is our sense of rightness, that the person who's giving us the argument or aspiring to office is the right person to be placed in that position or to be giving that argument and talking to us. Next up, the third one is pathos. Pathos is appeal to emotion. Anytime that someone is trying to make us feel very sympathetic or trying to express their sympathy towards us, they're appealing to pathos. Anytime that someone is trying to get us really riled up and make us feel anxious or nervous or worried or excited about something, they're trying to control and guide our emotions. They are making an argument that's based on appealing to pathos. Now, because I love putting in those little bonus rhetoric devices in there, I will also have a couple of bonus rhetoric devices appearing for your viewing pleasure during this debate. But the primary rhetorical devices and forms of argument that we're going to be going through today are those big three: logos, ethos, and pathos. This one was fun and interesting to put together, so take a gander, and I hope you enjoy it.
I asked a simple question. She's been doing this for 30 years. Why the hell didn't you do it over the last 15, 20 years? You were very much involved, excuse me, my turn. You were very much involved in every aspect of this country, very much. And you do have experience. I'd say the one thing you have over me is experience, but it's bad experience, because what you've done has turned out badly. For 30 years, you've been in a position to help, and if you say that I use steel or I use something else, I make it impossible for me to do that. I wouldn't mind. The problem is you talk, but you don't get anything done, Hillary. You don't. Just like when you ran the State Department, $6 billion was missing. How do you miss $6 billion? You ran the State Department. $6 billion was either stolen, they don't know. It's gone. $6 billion. If you become president, this country is going to be in some mess, believe me.
Well, first of all, what he just said about the State Department is not only untrue, it's been debunked numerous times, but I think it's really an important issue. He raised the 30 years of experience. Let me just talk briefly about that. You know, back in the 1970s, I worked for the Children's Defense Fund, and I was taking on discrimination against African American kids in schools. He was getting sued by the Justice Department for racial discrimination in his apartment buildings. In the 1980s, I was working to reform the schools in Arkansas. He was borrowing $14 million from his father to start his businesses. In the 1990s, I went to Beijing, and I said women's rights are human rights. he insulted a former Miss Universe, Alicia Machado, called her an eating machine.
Yeah.
And on the day when I was in the Situation Room, monitoring the raid that brought Osama bin Laden to justice, he was hosting the Celebrity Apprentice. So I'm happy to compare my 30 years of experience, what I've done for this country, trying to help in every way I could, especially kids and families get ahead and stay ahead, with your 30 years, and I'll let the American people make that decision.
Well, I think I did a much better job. I built a massive company, a great company, some of the greatest assets anywhere in the world, worth many, many billions of dollars. I started with a $1 million loan. I agree with that. It's a $1 million loan, but I built a phenomenal company. And if we could run our country the way I've run my company, we would have a country that you would be so proud of. You would even be proud of it. And frankly, when you look at her real record, take a look at Syria, take a look at the migration, take a look at Libya, take a look at Iraq. She gave us ISIS because her and Obama created this huge vacuum. And a small group came out of that huge vacuum because we should have never been in Iraq, but once we were there, we should have never got out the way they wanted to get out. She gave us ISIS as sure as you are sitting there. And what happened is now ISIS is in 32 countries. And now I listen how she's going to get rid of ISIS. She's going to get rid of nobody.
All right, we are going to get to foreign hotspots in a few moments, but the next segment is fitness to be president of the United States.
Okay. So that's a great example of the way we use ethos, logos, and pathos all the time, right? Anytime you make an argument to anybody about anything, you're throwing out those devices, okay? In order to be good at persuasion, you have to know how to use them well. And then once you know how to use them well, then that's a skill that you can use forever for everything, okay? All right, let's kind of switch into the different types of speeches. So the first one is informative. The next speech that we give in here is going to be an informative speech. We actually already gave an informative speech when you talked about yourselves, but this next one, you get to choose any topic you want to inform us about, okay? The purpose of an informative speech is to just share information. A lot of people think, well, I don't really know why I have to do this. I'm probably never going to give an informative speech ever again. But this right here, those are 3 informative speeches you give if you go off into the corporate world. A briefing, a report, a training. All of those are informative speeches. A briefing is a condensed informative speech. A report is a very detailed explanation of what has happened. And then a training, you demonstrate or you instruct with your audience how to do something, right? If you work any kind of job for over 6 months, you'd be surprised how many times you're asked to do a training, right? Like, oh, you train this person on how to do it, right? Because you know how to do it. So if you're not good at creating an informative speech, you're not going to be that great at training people because you don't know how to give them the information succinctly in a good organizational outline or format so that they understand it. Next is a persuasive speech. So the purpose of a persuasive speech is to persuade the audience to change, do, or stop doing. The third speech that we give in here is a persuasive speech. So you get to choose whatever topic you want to talk about and persuade us to do it, stop it, want it, like it, whatever it is, okay? The thing about a persuasive speech is it's extremely important that you pay attention to the organization of it, and I don't only mean the outline, but I'm also specifically talking about the organizational patterns, which is our next lecture, chapter 5, which I'm going to talk about as well today. The team or small group, that's not really a type of speech. It is, but it's not. Like, it's not an informative or persuasive. A team speech could be informative, it could be persuasive. It depends on what your team is trying to do. But it is kind of its own genre of speaking because team speeches are good and bad. Most people hate them because you have to rely on somebody else to do their share of the work. But there are advantages to team or small group speeches. One is the open exchange of information and also sharing tasks, like not having to do all the things yourself. But the disadvantages are obviously they're a little bit more time consuming, it's hard to coordinate schedules, and then just trusting and relying on other people to do their part to make it work. The thing about a team and a small group speech, in order to make it work, is you have to have really good practiced tight transitions, okay? You want to write that down or highlight it in your book because that is an exam question. The key to a good team speech is the transitions, okay? Making sure the transitions are tight and that they make sense. A team speech can get real awkward real fast if the transitions are kind of not good, okay? There's some different ways that you could do a team speech. The first one is a moderator approach. In a moderator approach, you have one person who's the moderator, and they control the flow of information. So they typically will transition in between each speaker. They will kind of introduce the team to the audience, and they just kind of keep things flowing forward. A bookend approach has one member of the team giving the introduction, and then that same person also does the conclusion. So it kind of wraps it up. It starts it and wraps it up with the same person, okay? And then a panel approach allows for each speaker to kind of have their own set of details that they share. And then in a panel approach, they transition between themselves. So if I was the first speaker, I would transition to the second speaker instead of using a moderator or something like that. The way to keep people engaged in a team presentation is every person on the team needs to be giving their attention to the person that's speaking. So if there's 4 of you up here giving a speech, then the 3 of you that are not speaking need to be looking at and paying attention to the person who's speaking. Because if I'm up here but I'm not speaking and I'm on my phone or I'm looking away, that gives the audience permission to look at me and not the speaker, okay? And then the last type of speech is a special occasion speech, also called a commemorative speech, also called a speech to entertain. They're all the same thing, okay? So a special occasion speech is exactly what it sounds like. It's a speech that commemorates a special occasion. So some common special occasion speeches are introductions, so introducing someone who's going to speak, or introducing someone who's going to accept an award, a toast to someone, acceptance or a presentation of an award, and eulogies, okay? So, you might have to give a wedding toast at your best friend's wedding as the groomsman. You might have to do a eulogy at your grandparents' funeral or something like that. Those are all special occasion speeches. The thing about a special occasion speech is it's not really persuasive, but it's not really informative. Your goal is just to commemorate the event or the person, okay? An impromptu speech is a medium of speaking, but it could be that it is also a special occasion speech, okay? So you might have to give a special occasion speech on the fly as an impromptu, but not always, okay? And sometimes impromptu speeches are not special occasions. Sometimes they're persuasive presentations. The thing about a special occasion speech is even though the organization gets to loosen up a little bit, you still have to have it. So even though I might not say my first point is, my second point is, my third point is, I would still have a first point, a second point, and a third point. And my transitions would just be a little bit looser, a little bit more hidden, I guess, okay? But you're still going to have good organization in that. If you want to watch a special occasion speech that has phenomenal organization, you need to watch the Matthew McConaughey speech when he wins the Oscar for Best Actor. It is the best special occasion speech I've ever seen. Okay, so you can look that up and watch that one. Questions on types of speeches. All right, let's move on to chapter 5, which is organizational patterns. So we already know organization is important, or I wouldn't have spent an entire day teaching you how to create an outline, right? Organization is important to your speeches, but now we have to talk about the organization of your main body points. So organizational patterns have nothing to do with the outline. The outline always stays the same. But organizational patterns tell us how we're going to organize our main body points inside the speech, okay? Organizing your speech affects the way your audience follows and understands your speech, so it's really important that you organize it well. So there's 4 different patterns that you can use for an informative speech. The first one is topical. This is probably my students' most favorite one because it's very easy to use and it just kind of does it for itself. It basically is when your topic naturally divides itself into different categories or different topics, okay? So you might choose a topic for your informative speech, and then you might talk about the most interesting parts of it, the most important parts, the most relevant parts, or even the main aspects of something, okay? So that would be topical when it's just kind of broken down into different parts. The example in your book of a preview of points for an informative pattern topical is, today we'll discuss communicating for a good first impression, professionalism in the workplace, and tips for proper business writing. So what are my 3 points in this speech?
Good first impression.
Mm-hmm. That's the first one. Professionalism
And tips for a proper business.
and tips for proper business writing. It's not in a first, second, third format, right? It's just like, here's 3 points that I'm going to talk about in this topic. The second organizational pattern is cause and effect. So cause and effect is you're going to describe a topic that results in a specific outcome, okay? So you're going to say, here's this topic right here, and then here are the effects of this topic. This is a good one if you are going to give an informative speech about a specific type of disease or sickness or a certain event that occurs, right, for a specific cause. The example that your book gives you for the preview points is today we will discuss the brand company's corporate restructuring and their declining employee satisfaction ratings. So the cause would be that the company restructured, and then the effects are declining employee satisfaction ratings, okay? It's informative because am I putting in anything about whether it's good or bad? No, it's just this happened, then this happened, okay? Chronological is when it's divided by time. Several of you chose chronological in your first speech because you did past, present, future. So in a chronological speech, it must be done in that specific order. And if it's not done in that order, then it's bad, right? So a lot of times my students will use chronological if they're gonna give a how-to speech. How-to speech pretty much has to be in chronological order, right? I can't take the tire off of my car if I'm gonna teach you how to change a tire without first jacking the car up, right? Like I'm gonna have problems. So I gotta do it in the order. If I'm giving a how-to speech on how to bake cupcakes, I can't talk about, pulling them out of the oven before I talk about putting them in the oven, right? So I gotta do it in that specific order, and if I don't, bad things happen. Like the speech doesn't work out well. So the example is today we'll discuss the brand company's initial spring survey on employee satisfaction, the development conference held this summer, and the communication training to be held this fall. So anytime you're doing something in order of time, it's chronological. And then finally we have spatial. So spatial is when you present information based on location. This is probably, my students never use this one. I guess they're kind of afraid of it. But basically it's based on location, right? So if I was going to give an informative speech about 3 places you need to know on SBC campus, and I talked about the dorms, the dome, and the cafeteria, that's spatial. Because based on location at SBC, okay? The example your book gives you is today we will discuss brand company's new communication wing with its first floor collaboration rooms and second floor training labs, okay? Now, why does it matter whether or not you have an organizational format beyond topical? Well, because sometimes your speeches make more sense when they're not organized topically. Sometimes it's going to make more sense if you organize it by location or if you organize it in time sequence, okay? But it really matters in the persuasive speech because the persuasive speech has a different purpose than the informative speech. Whereas the informative speech is sharing information, the persuasive speech is trying to get your audience to do something, right? So we have 4 different, well really 5 different organizational patterns for the persuasive speech. The first one is problem solution. Problem solution is just like it sounds. The first point is the problem, the second point is the solution, and why your solution that you're giving us is the best solution, okay? The persuasive part is getting your audience to agree that there is a problem and then also to take potential action with that, okay? The second one is problem cause solution. So it goes a step further than problem solution. Instead of just telling us there is a problem, you say, hey, there is a problem, here's what I think caused it, and so here are the solutions to solve the cause of that problem, okay? And then one that's not in your book, but I definitely want you to have access to, is this one, problem, solution, benefit. So it's a lot like problem solution, problem cause solution, but instead of the cause, you're saying, okay, here's what the problem is, here are the solutions to that, and here are the benefits from choosing my solutions, okay? Now, say we pick a topic. Say we pick the topic of childhood obesity. If I just chose that topic and I wanted to talk about it based on problem solution, I would say, look, here's the problem of childhood obesity. I'm going to give you all the statistics and all the facts that show that childhood obesity is, in fact, a problem. Then I'm gonna say the best way to solve it is to make healthy foods cheaper and to make sure that every child has recess in their school day. Problem solution. Okay, what if I want to talk about that topic with problem cause solution? Problem's gonna be the same. Here are the facts, here are the reason why it's a problem. What are my causes?
Fast food restaurants.
Fast food is cheap and easy, right? And we eat more fast food, why? Because convenient, because now what? Two parents work outside the home, right? We don't have mom at home all day long cooking and making sure that dinner's ready when dad gets home, because why? Mom's at work, right? So now with two-parent households, a lot of times fast food's cheap, easy, it's convenient. I can pick it up on the way home. I can buy 100 nuggets from Burger King for like $10-ish, right? That'll feed a lot of kids, okay? Why else? What's another cause for childhood obesity?
There's a decline in like physical, like.
Yes, there's a decline in physical activity, right? Okay, recesses are like super short. Like my 4th grade daughter doesn't really have recess. She has a 30-minute lunch period, and when they get done with lunch, they can go outside. So if lunch takes 15 minutes to eat, she gets 15 minutes of recess. Eating in 15 minutes is not really all that good for you, right? So that's in 4th grade. So she already doesn't have recess in 4th grade. So you're telling me 4th graders don't have recess, 5th graders don't have recess, 6th graders don't have recess, and then all of a sudden we get to 7th grade and we have an hour of athletics, and you think these kids are going to be ready for an hour of athletics when they haven't had recess for 3 years? That's a problem, right? What's another cause?
Electronics,
We don't go out and play because why?
video games.
We got video games and they're fun, and we can be on our cell phone, and we can play Call of Duty for 5 hours. We don't have to go outside and play Cowboys and Indians, which is politically incorrect anyway, right? So we don't play outside. And then what's another reason we don't play outside?
It's cool.
It's cold. Well, yes, it's cold today. What else? Why wouldn't I let my kids play outside? It's dangerous. Either I have to be outside with them so I can make sure they don't get kidnapped and then sex trafficked, right? Or what? Just hope that they don't die, right? There's a lot of reasons. So I could talk about problem cause solution. So then what are my solutions? My solutions are actually to the cause, right? Not really the problem. Okay, maybe I don't want to talk about causes. Maybe I want to talk about problem solution benefits. So here's the problem. We have childhood obesity. Here are the solutions. Make food healthier and also give them recess back. Okay, what are the benefits to healthier children?
Obesity goes down.
Obesity goes down, which is good.
Health is better.
Their health is better, which is good. What happens when we have a healthy, happy society?
I don't know, we never had it.
Expectancy goes up.
Life expectancy goes up. In a healthy, happy society, do we have school shooters all the time? Probably not. I mean, I'm going to make that jump. I don't have anything that tells me that, right? A happy, healthy society doesn't have children who are killing themselves. A happy, healthy society doesn't have children who are already on antidepressants and anxiety medications. Because why? They're happy and they're healthy. So if our society is happier and healthier, then there are no bad negative effects from that. We only have great benefits, right? Okay, so I could talk about childhood obesity in any of those 3 organizational patterns. Which one would I choose if I'm going to talk to these people right here? Which one would be most persuasive?
Problem solution.
What?
Because we get to see what we benefit from.
Okay.
Like what we benefit, which is, I think what drives a lot of people, know what they get from it.
Except for you're not a kid anymore.
Facts.
So it doesn't benefit you. Okay, what else? Would problem solution be most persuasive to y'all?
Yes.
Why? She was like, I knew you were going to say that.
A little more interesting, a little more intrigued.
Okay, if I just talk about the problem and the solution? I think solution would be hard, right? right? I think the solution is gonna be hard because I can't make healthy food cheaper. Like, what could I tell y'all to do to make healthy food cheaper? Grow your own? Pretty much that's it, right? Like, you don't have a lot of control over that. And get recess in schools. How are y'all gonna do that? And do you care that there's recess in school if you're not in school? I personally think that the most persuasive is problem, cause, solution because of this. You don't have children yet. So the benefits are far away. Like, you can't really like, oh, great, that's good for the kids coming up that I don't have, and so whatever, right? Problem solution's hard because I can't really prove my solutions are the best solution, but problem cause solution makes more sense because when I talked about the cause of obesity, y'all had things to say. Why? Because you're young. Because how long ago were you in elementary? Not that long, right? You know. If I frame it in the terms of how many of y'all had a parent that stayed at home? 1, 2, okay? There was a parent that stayed at home that cooked dinner. How many of y'all had dinners as a family at night? 3. How many of y'all played video games more than you went outside? A couple, all right? How many of you were ever told by your parents that you couldn't go outside if nobody was home? I tell my kids that all the time. I don't leave my kids home very much because they're very, very young. But I might leave my daughter home. She's 9. If she's sick, if I know I'm only going to be gone like 10 minutes or something. And I have all these rules. Do not go outside while I am not here. Do not answer the door while I am not here. Do not cook anything while I am not here, right? And do not try to light a candle, right? Because it's dangerous and I don't want you to die. Even though, like, I literally played outside all summer long when I was growing up. Like, of course, I lived on a farm and there was really nobody around. Nobody was going to kidnap me. But you see what I'm saying? Like, you're going to have to think about that. Audience analysis is going to tell you which one of these is going to be more persuasive. Okay, let's move on to comparative advantage. Comparative advantage is a fancy way to say pro-con. So anytime you're going to show how two things are alike and how they're different and which one is better, you're going to use comparative advantage. Okay? So if you were going to tell me why Nike is better than Reebok, you're going to use comparative advantage. If you're going to tell me why Apple is better than Android, you're going to use comparative advantage. If you're going to tell me why vaccinating your kids is better than not vaccinating your kids, probably going to use comparative advantage. Okay? Now here's the thing. Comparative advantage works really, really well when the audience already knows both sides of the argument. Okay? So if I already know both sides of Nike and I know Reebok, right? It's going to help me. If I know Android and I know Apple, comparative advantage works for me. What if it's a topic I don't know a lot about? Right? So if I'm going to do some audience analysis, what if I choose to do a persuasive speech on reproductive health? You all feel like you're well versed in the thought of reproductive health? Okay, all right. So would I want to talk about reproductive health in terms of comparative advantage? I don't know, right? Because the only other option is reproductive unhealth, or maybe ignoring reproductive health. So I could, but it just seems like, I don't know, that might be better for problem, cause, solution. Now, that brings up an important theory of communication. So this theory is called inoculation theory. Inoculation theory says that sometimes it is better for me to bring up the opposite side when the audience doesn't know about it, and then I can immediately debunk it and tell you why, ooh, the opposite side is bad. That inoculates you, it vaccinates you against believing anything about the opposite side, ever again. Because one time you heard about the opposite side, but I immediately told you how it was wrong. Right? So if I pick a topic that's not super well known, I might go ahead and talk about the opposite side that I don't agree with. But then I'm immediately going to tell you, but guys, this is bad. This is bad. Right? Because then you're going to be inoculated against ever thinking that that side is good. Okay? So you have to make that choice on your own. Do I want to bring up the opposite side? Do I not? I personally usually err on bringing it up. That way I can immediately tell you why it's a terrible idea and you shouldn't do it. Okay? Okay, and then final one is Monroe's motivated sequence. So Monroe's motivated sequence was developed by Alan Monroe. He was a professor at Purdue. And it was developed in the 1930s, and I think my students are scared of it because it has 5 steps. and they think it seems scary, but it's not really scary. Step number 1, you get the audience's attention. Step number 2, you show the audience that they have a need. Now, most of the time, the audience didn't know they had a need until you tell them that they have a need, okay? That's why we have commercials. Y'all didn't really know you needed that cereal until you saw the commercial on that cereal and you thought, I want that cereal, right? But before that, had you ever thought of that cereal? No, okay? That's why we have commercials. Step number 3, you say, hey, guess what? I can solve that need. And it's through this, whatever your product is that you're selling, okay? Step number 4, you take it a step further. You don't just tell us the benefits. You show me how much better my life is now that my need is solved, the need I didn't know I had. But you also have to show me how bad my life is going to be if I don't get the need solved. So I didn't know I had the need until you told me, but then you told me how to solve it, and then you told me how much better my life is going to be when it's solved, and how sucky my life is going to be if I don't solve it. And then step number 5, call me to action. What do you want me to do now? Okay? If you've ever seen a commercial that says call right now, you have seen Monroe's Motivated Sequence in action. Okay?
You want to keep warm when you're feeling chilled, but you don't want to raise your heating bill. Blankets are okay, but they can slip and slide. And when you need to reach for something, your hands are trapped inside. Now, there's the Snuggie, the blanket that has sleeves. The Snuggie keeps you totally warm and gives you the freedom to use your hands. So now, you can work the remote or read a book in total warmth and comfort. Use your laptop without being cold, or enjoy a snack while staying snugly warm. Snuggie is made of ultra-soft, thick, luxurious fleece with oversized sleeves, so you can move your arms and use your hands and still be wrapped in warmth. Super large, one size fits all, so you can stay warm from head to toe. No more cold feet. And with Snuggie, you can get up and still stay warm. Perfect for men, women, and children too. The ultra-soft fleece keeps you totally warm, and the sleeves keep your hands free. So you can snuggle your baby in your arms, or keep your pet close at hand. Perfect for chilly outdoor evenings, staying cozy and warm at sporting events. And it's ideal for those drafty dorm rooms. The Snuggie is machine washable, so you'll get years of warmth and comfort. Now you can use your remote, enjoy a snack, talk on the phone, do what you need to, and stay totally warm with the Snuggie. Similar products sell for up to $60, but call now and you'll get the ultra soft, ultra warm Snuggie for only $14.95. Available in royal blue, sage green, and burgundy. As an added bonus, you'll also receive our compact press and open book light. Just press and the book light instantly opens and turns on for extra light where you need it. A $15 value free. Yes, you get the ultra soft fleece Snuggie and our press and open book light. A $75 value, both for only $14.95.
To order, call 1-800-819-0658. Remember, you'll get the ultra-soft, ultra-warm Snuggie and the compact press and open book light for just $14.95 plus processing and handling. Call 1-800-819-0658.
That's Monroe's Motivated Sequence, right there. How do they get your attention?
Not it presented a problem.
Before that. In the very beginning of the commercial, what did you notice about it?
The price going up on the bill, sort of, right?
Yes, that was part of it. That was the need, though, right? They're saying, oh, you have a need. You didn't know you had this need, but you have it, right? You're cold all the time.
Like, have you had this issue?
They ask you, have you had this issue? It's blue, right? The beginning of the commercial was blue. Did y'all notice that? Like, it's like not in color. So it gets our attention because we're looking, but why is it tinted blue? What does that tell us? We're cold, right? And then they say, yeah, here's your need. You don't want to turn it up, so you make your bill so high. Oh, my goodness, like, you just wanted to eat popcorn while you were watching a movie, but you can't because your blanket falls off, right? You have a need. Well, guess what? We solved it. It's a blanket with sleep. Solved the need. Then they go into all the ways you can use it in your life. How much better your life is going to be when you get up and roam around. You don't have cold feet anymore because it's extra long. It can be used for a man or for a woman. You could never snuggle your baby before you had Snuggie, but now you can. What about your little pet? Now they're warm. Go to any sporting event. They show you all the ways you can use it in your life. And then they say what? Call right now. If you call right now, you get the free gift of the light. You just have to pay extra shipping and handling, which is probably $7, but the light's probably worth 50 cents, right? They don't tell you that part. That's Monroe's Motivated Sequence. It's super, super simple to use. Monroe's Motivated Sequence, though, does work best if you're trying to sell us something. Like sell us a product. That's the best way to use Monroe's motivated sequence. It would be harder to use it if you were going to talk about like childhood obesity or vaccinations or something like that, because it's not going to lend itself to that very well, okay? The last slide is just a picture that I have, and this is from your book, so it's inside your book, and it gives you a different set of preview points for each persuasive pattern, okay? Because when you say your preview points in your speech, I should immediately know what organizational pattern you're using, because it's going to tell me what order your points are in, and the way you say it is going to let me know, oh, hey, they're using this organizational pattern, okay? So, problem solution, I'll show you how our company can avoid bankruptcy through management and leadership training. What's the problem? Bankruptcy. We want to avoid it. We're going to solve it by this. Problem cost solution. We must discuss our impending bankruptcy. That's our problem. Evaluate the breakdown in leadership. That's what caused it. And then how are we going to solve it? Encourage greater management training. Okay? Comparative advantage. You're always going to know it's comparative advantage because there's going to be that little word or in your preview points. Okay, because you're going to do this or you're going to do that. And then Monroe's motivated sequence, it's a little bit harder to write a preview point, so if you end up using it, definitely feel free to ask for help because it's going to be harder to write a preview point that way. Okay, now one thing that I saw a lot on our outlines is that we didn't really understand our intro very much. A lot of us did it like this. So we had Roman numeral 1 was our intro, A was the attention getter, but then B we had point 1, C we had point 2, and D we had point 3. But our preview of point should be one declarative sentence in D. Okay? If you do point 1 here, you're missing justification and credibility. If you do point 2 here, you're missing the thesis statement. Remember, the thesis is the goal. It's not the preview of points, right? D is always going to have the preview of points. So your preview of points should be one declarative sentence. What does declarative mean? I remember back to 3rd grade when you learned grammar.
It's just stating something.
It's a statement, right? It's not an interrogative sentence, which is what? Question. And it's not an exclamatory sentence, which is what? An exclamation point, right? Declarative means there's a period, so it's just one declarative sentence. A lot of people like to frame their preview points as questions, but that's not right, okay? It doesn't have all the parts of it. Okay, so